Let's ride.
Time for the words that are recited before each and every game here at Dodger Stadium. Take it away, Vin.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
What is going on, Dodgers fans? Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. The MLB Trade Deadline has come and passed. Your Los Angeles Dodgers are continuing to kick the San Francisco Giants. You know what? They're 70-33 on the season. We are recording on the night of the trade deadline, and there's just so much to cover today. We got Juan Soto, Josh Bell, Josh Hader going to the Padres. We got Joey Gallo and Chris Martin wearing Dodger blue. We got the legend James Outman making an impact already as a rookie. And we'll briefly touch upon the call-up of Miguel Vargas, a prospect so many Dodger fans have been touting. So that's awesome to see. But we're going to start the show off with some unfortunate news, and this hits all of us very hard. And I'm talking about the passing of Vin Scully, the GOAT, as you would say. I mean, I can't think of a better announcer in all of sports history than Vin Scully. Was the Los Angeles Dodgers announcer for 67 years until he decided to call it a career in 2016. Thankfully, he got to witness the Dodgers go on to win the World Series in 2020. That includes Clayton Kershaw, of course. We're also joined by a friend of the show. You know him from KSBY. I'm talking about not the manager of the Astros, but the better one, Dusty Baker. So I know this is going to be a tough way to pass the torch over, but I know you wanted to get some stuff off your chest, so have at it.
Yeah, glad to be back on the show. And, they scheduled to have me on this thing well before we had the news. But, I guess I'll start off by saying this. I thought about this day and knew this day was going to come for a very long time, obviously. And nobody wanted to think about this. I think it started to get a little more real once Tommy Lasorda passed. Of course, once Vin Scully's wife passed, you knew at some point in time that it was going to happen too, but you just didn't want to believe it was going to happen. You had mentioned I work in TV. My whole dream growing up all stemmed from one man, and that was Vin Scully. It's hard not to be emotional, to be honest, because I would go to bed every night. As a kid, my parents would tuck me in sharp 9:00 p.m. The Dodgers would be in like the 6th inning, the 5th inning at that time always. And I would never actually fall asleep because all I did was listen to Vin Scully on my radio. And that's my memory of being a kid, to be honest, was, those times I would go to sleep and, he was not just the voice of summer for me. He was the voice of my childhood, my lifetime. And, obviously some of the more modern day calls that we've heard from him, you'll never forget the Charlie Culberson home run. Yasiel Puig's arising. I mean, you'll never forget that either. But as a reporter, if it wasn't for Vin Scully, I can honestly tell you, I don't think this is the career path I would have gone into. It is truly because of Vin that inspired me to go this direction. He is the one that showed and taught me my biggest passion, which is to tell the stories of those whose voices haven't been heard. And Vin Scully did that better than anybody ever in this industry. I firmly believe that. And I'm just so grateful to have grown up listening to him. It's really hard as we're recording this right now to really wrap the mind around the fact that he's gone. And part of him isn't gone. We have 94 years of him, but a lifetime of the soundtrack of baseball comes straight from him. And it's going to take a long time to get over this one, probably harder than anybody. And it's crazy not, getting to know somebody in person, but you feel like you've known him your whole life. And, one last part, because I know I can ramble about this forever, but, there's a lot of memories people will have of Vin Scully. My biggest one would be on October the 1st of 2012. The Dodgers were in the running for a wild card spot. They were facing the Giants, and it was Mark Ellis at the plate. They had a chance to tie the game. He hits a line drive. That damn Angel Pagan in center field dives and makes the game-winning catch to end it. The Giants obviously had first place already clinched, but the Dodgers season was over there. And I'll never forget sitting there thinking we were so close. And there was just so much pain and anguish. And the fact of losing the Giants just really made it even worse. But hearing Vinskully, the way that he wrapped it up just so quickly and so yet effectively, he said, that's the way this game is. You win, you lose, you celebrate, and you suffer. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, holy cow, that is what baseball does to you. Sometimes you win, and when you win, you celebrate. When you lose, you feel like it's the end of the world. You're suffering. And there was nobody that made me feel like I was being related to more than Vin Scully. It's like he was your best friend sitting next to you and just telling you, hey, it's going to be okay, but this is how it is. This just has how it goes. You lose to the Giants sometimes. You don't like it. It sometimes can feel like absolute suffering. And he found a way to put words into a sentence that I don't think anybody could ever formulate. And for that, I'm just thankful.
Thank you so much, Dusty, for sharing that. That was really awesome stuff. I totally forgot about that 2012 call, but that is Vin Scully for you. And the last thing I'll say to touch on Vin Scully before I pass it over, he was the main reason that this podcast started to begin with. Very similar path of what Dusty was talking about. Growing up listening to Vin, the way he would just explain the stories of all these unique players, pulling out stories of, like, I remember, God, I wish I remember his name, but there was a Rocky player, and every time he faced the Dodgers, he would talk about his car, how he had like this crazy colorful car. But so I know we could go on with Vin Scully for probably hours, but we did have a question from a listener from Shirtato 741, and then this can tie into your guys' thoughts on Vin Scully. But what was your one favorite Vin Scully call?
David,
I'll start with you.
Hello, everybody. First of all, incredibly sad day for the sports world, and I don't really have a lot of words to say on it. It's just very, very sad, and it's someone you grow up listening to, and I think that's the case for people who are our age and in their 40s and 50s too. I mean, his career spanned 60 years or whatever, so tons of people grew up listening to him. So it's a very, very sad day, and I'm just gonna go with one that's just the classic, the Kirk Gibson walk-off. I mean, I wasn't alive for it, but I've heard it and I've seen it hundreds of times, and it's just a classic call. The way he set the scene and the way he finished it was just masterful, and that's going to be my answer.
All right,
I
Jake?
think mine. I think mine is, and again, I wasn't alive for this one either, obviously, but the Koufax perfect game, the 2-2 to Harvey Keene, just that entire inning is just so beautiful. Just the way he sets the stage, he calls out the time, it's just every little detail he was describing one after the other, just beautifully set. I think along the lines of what Dusty was talking about, I too am in the broadcast world and news and sports. And I believe Vinskully did have a lot to do with why I went into this business and why I studied broadcasting. I wrote my college essay to get into Syracuse University on Vinskully and how I grew up idolizing him. He had some of the greatest lines that we could, make a list of a million of them that we can remember. He just was everything about Dodger baseball. He's why I fell in love with baseball. He like David said, I think that's such a great point about how he just spanned the lifetimes of so many different people. Anyone you could come across, whether they're in their 90s or when they were maybe 5 or 6 years old listening to his last game in 2016. Everyone kind of grew up with Vinskully. And so that is to me the coolest bonding experience I think any fan base or any fan can have, is to know that he was the voice that was talking to all of us. And that's how we're all connected as Dodgers fans. So a really, really sad day. And I thought that the Sportsnet LA broadcast handled it really well, just beautifully done. Joe Davis and Jess Mendoza, phenomenal job. And I think there was a broadcast discussion prior to the game. They knew something, maybe that I don't know when he passed, like the time he passed, but they definitely had enough time to make sure, to produce it the way that they wanted it produced. And they did a really nice job.
My favorite call is the classic, he's done it, when Clayton Kershaw threw his no-hitter against the Colorado Rockies and just went into silence after that. You could hear the crowd erupting at Dodger Stadium.
That was his thing.
Dusty, I know you mentioned the 2012 one. I don't know if you had a different one or that's the one you're sticking with.
The Kershaw one is pretty dang high on my list as well there. I'll just revert back to also just a positive one that, I'll never forget too, was the Culberson home run, because it's not just the moment in which Culberson hit that home run that mattered. Obviously they won the division and that was incredible as is, but everything that followed that too, it was like, you couldn't have scripted it any better. Vin Scully speaking to the crowd afterwards, the song that he sang, I mean, he's with his wife. That's the last time publicly, I think, that we had a chance to see him and his wife together. Just everything about that. It was Hollywood. And I'm shocked they haven't made a movie about him yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if after this, there's a movie called Scully, because it deserves to be a storyline that is made into a movie. He lived a life that we all dream of living, and he did it flawlessly. And so I think that Culberson home run, that was the start of what was just a beautiful call, and then followed by the way that he also just really ended things as well, including his time in San Francisco as his final call too.
The one other one I want to add real quick, and I tweeted it out. What?
Never mind. Go ahead. I'll add one if it's not the same.
The 4+1 game in 2006. I think what was so amazing about that is that Vin Scully, who had seen millions of games at that point, so many no-hitters and perfect games, so many wild things that half of us have never seen, you could tell in his voice that he had never seen something like this, and how amazing it was that it kept happening. And after each home run, his voice and his pitch changed. And Marlon Anderson's, the fourth one, was just, I rewatched it, just gives me chills, every time we listen to it. And another drive, it just was he was so just surprised and excited. And then, of course, the capper with Nomar, the Dodgers win at 11-10, and then he just shuts up. And then the Nomar trots around the bases, and that's just so quintessential him. But yeah, that's definitely up there for me too. Was that the one you were thinking of, David?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Nailed it.
Yeah, it's only fitting that Vin Scully would go out during a Dodgers-Giants series where they're playing at the final ballpark that he officially called a baseball game up in San Francisco, whatever they call it now. Oracle? But yes. All right, moving on. It's trade deadline talk. The first question comes from GD or GDLU Hosh on Twitter. Are the Padres a threat now? Well, they might be, because what they did during this trade deadline season is quite remarkable, to be honest. As I predicted on this podcast, they landed Juan Soto, did not expect Josh Bell to tag along, but they got him to kind of an under the radar great addition. I know David mentioned him as a possible Dodgers target, but the good news is the Padres are going all in. They went from one of the best farm systems to now Fangraphs has them ranked dead last. They gave up Mackenzie Gore, who we really have not seen a lot of yet as Dodgers fans, but we kind of expected him to be someone to maybe torch us for years. Don't have to worry now. They gave up Robert Hassel III, CJ Abrams, James Wood, Harleen Susanna, and Luke Voigt, because Eric Hosmer was initially in that package, but he didn't want to go to Washington. It was in his 10-team no trade clause. He vetoed the trade. It held things up for probably a good half hour. So the Padres had to pivot and say, okay, well, Luke Voigt, see ya. My initial thoughts are just kind of, I respect the Padres for going all in. When you land a superstar like Juan Soto, and now you have a trio of Manny Machado, Juan Soto, and of course, Fernando Tatis Jr., who has not played this season, that is just quite something. I don't know where they're going to line these guys up in the order, but that three is one hell of an order. And this could be something that the Dodgers are going to have to face now for potentially the next decade. I'll leave it at that if you guys want to get in on the Juan Soto talk. But I am thankful that the Dodgers did not throw away all their farm guys to get this guy, because I don't even know if they would be able to sign him long term. The contract that the Padres are going to have to fork up is going to be over $500 million guaranteed.
So I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This was a great day for the San Diego Padres. a great couple days for the San Diego Padres. They put all their chips in the middle, and finally, after completely whiffing last year, AJ Preller got it done. Now, is this a huge gamble? Absolutely. You completely gutted your entire farm. You traded the top 4 prospects I mentioned on this podcast last week that I said should be included in the deal. Mike Rizzo did a good job with this trade for the Nationals. He probably could have got a tiny bit more, but I think he did good. He got the 4 big names. Now, for the Padres, you get Josh Hader, you get Juan Soto, you get Josh Bell as a throw-in, and you get Brandon Drury. That is a haul. They have completely changed their entire makeup of that entire team. They are a legitimate threat in this division. They're a legitimate threat in the National League, and they're a legitimate World Series contender. Now, the Dodgers still have the upper hand. They have a 12-game lead in division. They have the playoff experience that the Padres do not have. The Padres are almost certainly going to have to play a 3-game wild card series against either the Braves or the Mets. And frankly, the Padres pitching is still a bit of a question mark. After Joe Musgrove, it gets kind of iffy. For the long term, if you can lock down Soto, you have that paired with Tatis and Machado. That is the best big 3 in baseball. Yes, I do think it is slightly better than the Dodgers' big 3. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think it is. So it was a home run for the Padres for now. Now it could blow up in flames. And if it does blow up in flames, if they don't win a World Series and Juan Soto doesn't sign long-term, AJ Preller should be sent to the gulag and they have to restart that entire franchise. So right now, home run for the San Diego Padres.
I'm surprised by you, David. I did not think you were going to take that route. And I did not think I was going to take this route, which is sort of the dissenting opinion, I guess you could say. The Padres always do a lot of really good things on paper. I remember when we talked about, who won the offseason when they picked up Snell and they picked up Darvish, and everyone's saying, oh, they won the offseason. Well, that team ended up just absolutely crumpling towards the end, and they could not withstand the rest of the run there. So yes, on paper, it looks great. Obviously you get Juan Soto and the rest of those guys. AJ Preller's out of his damn mind. I don't know what he's doing, but I don't even think he knows really what he's doing, but he did it. And if you're a Padres fan, you got to love that. I mean, you got to. I mean, the fact that he's trying to come at the king with the Dodgers, the fact that he's trying, which is way more than I can say for the rest of the bums in this division, but he's doing it. However, I will caution everyone and say, let's just see, let's see how they play. Show me that, you're a serious threat. I don't think they're going to overtake the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are a juggernaut and they have a 12-game lead. And I'm confident in saying that they're going to hold that lead. Yeah. But whether or not the Dodgers face the Padres in the playoffs, the Padres got to get to the playoffs. And in what shape are they going to be? I think we just have to wait and see on this one.
I'm kind of in between both of you guys on this. So first of all, with David, I completely agree with you on the fact that it was a home run trade deadline. I think that the Padres, they get an A+. They do. But it goes back to that whole risk factor that Jake was kind of mentioning right there. So here's the devil's advocate, if you will, where it could go one way or another for them. A big factor is going to be, are they going to extend Juan Soto? That may come down the road. If you look at their spot track right now, they have about $86 million obligated through 2025. So they do have the funding technically to be able to pull that off. I'm expecting that they will. I wouldn't think they gave up all this prospect capital for a 2.5-year rental, if you will, which, by the way, that's still technically 3 postseasons that they get out of Juan Soto. That's a long time. But I do expect them to probably fork out the cash for an extension. What this does for them, though, that's a knock against them. They probably don't have an awful lot of capital to really invest in other major free agents. So they're kind of strapping themselves to the hope that Juan Soto continues to be this Ted Williams-esque player, as well as Fernando Tatis Jr. getting out of trouble and staying healthy. Manny Machado not aging too early. They're having to bank on those 3 things happening to be good for the long haul. Now, I'm not going to say that's not going to happen because I think especially this year and even more so in 2023, the Padres are going to be a scary team, okay? It's going to be harder for the Dodgers in 2023 because a full year of Juan Soto, having the fact that they're going to have an implication of, okay, this is how he fits into the lineup, this is how he fits into the team. They're going to have all that figured out by the end of this year. Whether or not the Padres win the World Series or not in 2022, it's not a failure, okay? A lot of Dodgers fans are going to want to point to that. I think 2023 is probably the year the Padres are actually gunning for. But this move for Josh Hader also leads me to believe, and the move obviously for Josh Bell and Drury, that, hey, they're in it for this year too. And that is frightening. Okay. Now here's to Jake's point. The thing that's scary is they depleted this entire farm system, which was the deepest in baseball. I personally have a little bit of bias. I'm a diehard fan of Esteury Ruiz. I love the makeup of this guy. I thought his prospect ranking was way too low. The Padres dished him for virtually nothing. It's like kind of a throw-in, if you will, in the trade for the Brewers. I think that's going to haunt them. I think losing Hassel III is going to haunt them. Wood was projected by many to actually possibly be their top prospect.
I think he's going to be the best player in that trade.
He very well could be, and that was a huge ad for the Nationals. Like, we could be talking about the Washington Nationals, I'm not joking, in like 2 to 3 years as like a playoff contender. I really do believe that. More likely probably in the 3-year range, but I think the Nationals got a great haul out of this. I do believe that. And so that's tough for the Padres because you're basically limiting yourself here in the future. You're trying to win this year and even more so in 2023. And if you don't do that, if you don't extend Soto, that's a failure as is. But if you don't win in the next 2 years, I also think that's a failure. More so for next year. But it's really a huge gamble, as you kind of mentioned there, David. And I will say this, the pitching for the Padres at the top, okay, you have Musgrove, you have Darvish. Those two have pitched very well this season. But outside of that, it's really not deep at all in that rotation. And losing Mackenzie Gore, who I know had an arm injury, so that kind of took him out of the rotation initially. But there's not a lot of depth there from the second starter down. Like you have Darvish inconsistent. And of course, Musgrove hadn't even looked that good over the last couple weeks here. So I don't know, man. It's so tough to say. The lineup's going to be a gauntlet through that top 4 this year. It just is. You're going to have to expect that Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bell, even Cronenworth and Profar. Profar has been hitting the lights out of the baseball. That might be a really tough stretch for the Dodgers and any team in baseball. But the bullpen's not great. Josh Hader's struggled a little bit this year. I think there's a reason why the Brewers dished him. They got great prospect capital back. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent right now. But I do think that they are a legitimate threat to the Dodgers, not just this year, but also in 2023 and possibly beyond.
Yeah, I think they're going to regret giving up Ruiz big time. I mean, he had 1,000 OPS in the minors with 60 stolen bases.
Huge.
And to me, Josh Hader really does not move the needle. He's basically having an identical season to Taylor Rogers. I mean, this isn't the same lights out Hader from 2018, 2019, where he was posting an ERA in the sub ones. I mean, I don't think he can even pitch on back-to-back days or something. I think he has this weird endurance issue.
To be fair, Hader had that one implosion where he gave up 6 runs and didn't get an out. So that kind of skyrocketed his ERA. He's definitely
I don't care.
Than Rogers.
2019, Juan Soto owned him, took the lead in the wild card game. Freddie Freeman last postseason took him deep in a big spot. There are a lot of moments where the game is on the line. That's regular season, but there are a lot of big postseason moments already where Hader has imploded. And Dinelson Lamet, who was great for the Padres.
Postseason too?
Yep.
TK was regular season.
Yeah,
no.
TK was regular season. Yeah.
Hader was untouched. But anyways, Dinelson Lamet was great for the Padres. They kind of wore him out. Great reclamation project for the Brewers. And then they got another prospect in the mix along with Taylor Rogers. I know Brewers fans are probably like, what are we doing when we're in first place? But I think it's going to work out in the long run because the prospect capital, and they're basically pivoting to Rogers. They got Devin Williams now. It makes sense to me. That's really all I have to say on the Padres. They're better than where they were before the deadline. I still don't think they're a threat to the Dodgers whatsoever. To me, it boils down to the Dodgers having to take out the Mets and the Braves.
I just disagree. I mean, I think the Padres completely flipped the script today and the past couple days. I really, really do. They're historic.
I'm shocked by you, David.
They are historic chokers. We know that.
I know, but
they are going to have to prove that that's not the case. But on paper, and I know it's just on paper, and we've said this before, it's a completely different team. I mean, you get Juan Soto, that completely changes the entire clubhouse. It changes the vibe. It changes everything. So I view them as, if not one of the top 2, the biggest threat in the National League.
I just want to see it. Just show me. That's
I would
all.
prefer not to see it, but I hear your point.
Yeah.
I will say what scares me a little bit is the Dodgers are on a collision course right now to potentially face those Padres in the DS.
Yep.
If it was the NLCS, I would feel a lot better about that because the Dodgers rotation's deeper. They've got better bullpen pieces, but in a best of 5 series, you're talking about having to face Musgrove probably twice. And there's a chance that they throw Darvish out even twice too. So you're really limiting it to, okay, the Padres rotation as a whole, you might face Clevenger, right? You might face Morahone, who's obviously not that great, but he actually pitched okay in his one appearance.
What about Snell?
Snell scares me in the postseason.
Blake Snell's got to be their number 2 over Darvish, in my opinion.
Oh, the way Darvish is pitching this year, I would say Darvish has got to be the number 2 with 3.24 ERA.
Against the Dodgers.
Yeah, it is, but the whip under 1, his whip's a 0.97. Now, Snell does own the Dodgers, and that is probably a reason to throw him in a game 3. Unless you do want to mix in the righty, lefty, righty, then you go that direction because you're going to have a game 3 no matter what. But that's the whole point. It's like, do you want to get into a matchup where you're forced to have to face a, Joe Musgrove in a game 5 where it's all hands on deck and Josh Hader comes in for 2 innings? I don't know. I don't love that. It's kind of the same feel the Atlanta Braves gave me a little bit, where they loaded up at the right time and they caught heat too. But the National League's tough, man. It is. If Dodgers fans are going to walk around and say, hey, we're still winning this World Series easily, they may want to hold that sentence back a little bit, because the Padres are scary. The Braves are scary. Out of that trio of them, and then also the Mets, I might actually be the least scared of the Mets.
I'm not. No, Scherzer and DeGrom potentially twice in
potentially is the key word there.
DeGrom came back today throwing 102, and then the Braves, Fried and Spencer Strider maybe twice. The NL is going to be tough no matter what. This might be one of the deepest National Leagues, top wise speaking, in quite some time.
It's no cakewalk. It is no cakewalk. That's for sure.
The Cardinals and the Brewers just need to stop. It's a 4-team race, man.
All right, let's move on to what the Dodgers did this deadline. Despite maybe some Dodgers fans' dismay, they were actually pretty active over the last couple of days. They acquired Chris Martin a couple of days ago in exchange from Zach McKinstry with the Chicago Cubs. They acquired Joey Gallo straight up for Clayton Beeter, one of the Dodgers' top 15 prospects who was pitching in Double-A. They also shipped out Jake Lamb to the Seattle Mariners for cash considerations. They traded Mitch White to the Toronto Blue Jays, along with Alex DeJesus for Moises Brito and Nick Frazo. And they also moved Garrett Clevenger to the Tampa Bay Rays. So we'll start with the Chris Martin trade. The Dodgers needed to get a reliever. They got their guy. Chris Martin might not be the flashiest or sexiest name out there, given just the deadline movement. But they
did not get their guy.
They got a guy.
They got a high leverage reliever, which is what they needed.
Did they?
They got a good filler when it's they're trailing 5-3 maybe. I don't know.
Disagree. 2.19 ERA and 12.1 innings in the postseason. In save situations, opponents have a 653 OPS against them. That's over a 308 plate appearance sample size. And in high leverage situations, opponents are hitting 255 off Chris Martin with a 638 OPS. Now, obviously, people are probably thinking they wanted to get a closer to potentially replace Craig Kimbrell. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers were just more looking to replace Daniel Hudson. And I will note they do have Blake Trinan coming back. So that's basically a deadline add. And on top of that, Brusdar Graterol will be activated off the IL soon. Not to mention Walker Buehler, Dustin May, and the name that David will not let me mention, but Danny Duffy is expected.
No, we're not doing that, dude. He is banned.
Pretty loaded pen right there. And you look at the Dodgers 40-man roster, and we'll get into some of the guys I just mentioned who they had to get rid of, but they had to ship guys out because they have to open up 60-man spots to get these guys back off the IL.
I thought what the Dodgers did with during this trade deadline was fine. They didn't. I mean, the way their team is currently constructed, they're a terrific team. And if they made 0 moves, I still think that they would be the favorites to win the World Series. So just going to start by saying that. Before I get into Joey Gallo, the one regret that I do have, and I know that David agrees with me here, the one regret that I do have is that they didn't get an elite higher leverage reliever. I don't think Chris Martin is that guy. And I also think that Blake Treinen is that guy. Bruce Dargratto could be that guy, but we've got to wait to see what they're going to be like when they come back from injury. Same with Dustin May. Walker Buehler before the injury was terrible. So we need to wait and see what those guys are going to do. And I just think it may have been a gamble by Friedman and company to stand pat on that and not go after at least one reliever, a David Robertson, Josh Hader. Those guys, you didn't need to break the bank to get those guys. And I thought
Josh Hader, you had to.
I thought that one of those guys could have been decent for us. Right. But you don't, it's not like a prospect haul that they were expecting for Pablo Lopez. Oh, by the way, why are the Marlins so damn difficult to deal with? Why are they always just freaking hoarding all their players all the time? They always do this. But anyway, I thought that they should have gone after a reliever and gotten one. That's my only regret. I really actually do like the Joey Gallo pickup. I know he's struggling in New York, but he was a cheap pickup and they didn't have to give up much to get him. Clayton Beeter not having a great year anyway. So I thought that was a good gamble for a guy that gets on base. He's like a Max Muncy type, and it's this kind of a reclamation project. This is kind of a guy that, has a lot of pop, can get on base, can play a really good outfield. And so why not give him a shot? And I think that, it was just a bad situation in New York. Not every guy is cut out to play in New York City. It's a tough place to play. He got booed mercilessly. He seemed like he was miserable there. So why not put him on the Dodgers and give him an opportunity to hit in the middle of this order? I really like that move. I think that it's a very, it's not that much of a gamble because whatever you get out of him will be a bonus.
Love Joey Gallo addition for the Dodgers. Low risk, high reward. Didn't give up anything like Jake mentioned. Prior to being traded to the Yankees, he had a 211 batting average, not sexy, but an 833 on base plus slugging with the Rangers. Back-to-back seasons, he had 40 home runs. He plays a Gold Glove defense, and the Dodgers were desperately looking for a left-handed bat for whatever reason. And to me, yeah, Jake Lamb was cool. We touted him. We liked him a lot. Wasn't that great with the Dodgers. I mean, he batted 239 with 2 home runs. Joey Gallo, to me, has the potential to have like that Eddie Rosario impact in the postseason. If he just gets going, he's going to hit a ton of bombs.
Yeah, I agree. I liked the move. It didn't cost anything, frankly. I mean, Beeter has not been anything good. He projects as a reliever. He's got a 5 ERA in Double-A, I think. And that actually closes the book on that Gratterall Kenta Maeda trade because the Dodgers drafted Beeter with that pick they got from Minnesota. So it ended up being Gratterall and half a season of Joey Gallo. But I was underwhelmed. Like Jake, I wanted a reliever. We don't know what Treinen is going to be like when he comes back. Kimbrel we don't know what the hell is going on when he takes them out. You don't know what you're going to get. It's sometimes really good, and it's sometimes like, holy shit, what are we doing? It's basically Evan Phillips in the bullpen right now. You don't know what you're going to get from Gratterall, and Treinen, like I said. Dustin May, another question mark. Is he going to start? Is he going to piggyback start, maybe with Heaney in the playoffs? We don't know what the roles are there. So I would have liked them to acquire a reliever like a Raisel Iglesias, somebody to just get a body in there. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You don't necessarily have to put him on the playoff roster. But it didn't cost, was it the Phillies who got him or the, I forget who got Iglesias, but
it was the Braves, wasn't it?
Braves, yeah, the Braves.
Braves. Okay, so it was the Braves. They didn't. It didn't cost that much. They ate a lot of the salary to lessen the prospect haul. So,
and didn't they give up Jesse Chavez?
I think
Tucker
so.
Davidson
somehow still in the major leagues. So I don't know. And frankly, they traded away a possible playoff reliever in Mitch White. So. Didn't get
that to me was really bad. I mean, to give up starting rotation depth when you have all these injuries is just, I didn't like that.
See, I disagree with that. I think Mitch White would have been a solid reliever in the playoffs. I think trading Mitch White is a vote of confidence in Ryan Pepio. If they need a guy, I think they basically said, that's you. So I'm okay with that. I just, apparently the prospect they got, Ryan something, is some super athletic pitcher who can dunk a basketball and projects really highly. He had Tommy John, but he's come back strong. So I get that. I didn't really see the need.
The whole Joey Gallo move was the one that puzzled me a little bit. Before I even get to that, though, I agree with both of you guys on the reliever side of things. I thought Jorge Garcia was going to be the guy that they would go for, the closer for the Orioles.
Jorge Lopez?
Sorry, did I say Garcia? I thought Jorge Lopez was going to be the closer, the target that they were going to go for. The Twins didn't have to give up a heck of a lot for him. If you give a comp, it would have been probably costing us like Cody Hosey or Ronan Kopp or something like that, a lower tier prospect to get him. They gave up one, their 23rd ranked prospect and then a couple lower tier ones in order to get him. I thought that's the price that I would have been willing to pay to get a pretty decent reliever like Lopez. And they didn't pull the string on that. And Martin is definitely not their guy. That one is just a rough pill for me to swallow. I thought at the very least, to be honest, I thought David Robertson was going to be a piece that they were going to go after and acquire. I saw rumors about that they might try and snag Robertson and Ian Happ in a deal. I was very excited about that combo because Ian Happ has had a great season so far. But Joey Gallo instead, and basically it was that comp or getting Joey Gallo and then obviously getting Martin and just, I don't know, I feel a little underwhelmed by it. But at the same time, I'm glad the Dodgers didn't part with any major pieces. But Joey Gallo, the way he fits in this lineup, I don't really know. I just had this fear that I could see it all now. He's either going to have a major home run in the playoffs or he's going to come up in a major situation with the bases loaded and strike out on a fastball right down the pipe. It's going to be one or the other. It's just, it's going to torture me, man. So I don't know. And I can just see it happening now. So I've interviewed Joey Gallo before. Great guy, really, really nice human being. I will tell you that. Without going too deep into details, he used to date somebody I knew at TCU. He can hit there. He could probably hit at some point in the league. Okay, but I really hope
wasn't the only thing he was hitting there, I guess. Huh?
I've seen him hit before. Or I haven't seen it, but I can assume he's hit before in some capacity, and I hope he does it again at the playoff level for the LA Dodgers. I can only assure you that I will feel confident that way because I've seen it done once before. Really nice dude, though. He might be really good fit in the clubhouse.
All right. Well, despite your false narratives that the Dodgers need a reliever, I'm about to read off to you guys 14 pitchers that are most likely locks, and one of these guys ain't going to make the cut. Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias, Tony Gonsolin, Andrew Heaney, Tyler Anderson, that's 5. Dustin May, Walker Buehler, hopefully coming back, that's 7. Now you go to your bullpen, Craig Kimbrell, Evan Phillips, Blake Trinan, Brusdar Graterol, Alex Vesia, Caleb Ferguson, Yency Almonte, that's 13. Now you add Chris Martin, there's your 14th, and maybe Tommy Kahnle comes back. That's 15 reliever pitchers right there. So the idea that Andrew Friedman had to trade for a high leverage guy, non-existent. He does not trade top prospect capital for relievers, never has, probably never will. So I can live with the moves or lack thereof that Andrew Friedman did today. And to be honest, I'm giving the Dodgers a B for this deadline. I think they plugged in some holes. Joey Gallo,
B for boring.
Joey Gallo, even though David was bashing Friedman today after praising him for years.
I was.
Best team in baseball. Let me remind you, they have 70 wins. Name me another team right now with 70 wins. The other teams making all these moves today, they're the ones trying to catch the Dodgers. The Dodgers don't have to burn prospects for guys they don't need. I'm fine with this team rolling into October. They also have guys down in the minors like Carson Fulmer, who they could easily add up. Dylan Betances and Hanser Robles have not been sexy so far in AAA, but they are there. Maybe they get it together. The Dodgers have options here, and I'm fine with this pitching staff. I trust it. They have the best ERA in baseball. I'm not sweating one bit.
Did you name David Price when you were rattling off those names?
No, I did not.
No?
No, I did not.
Was that a no? Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think Ferguson is for sure gonna be on there. So there might not be a need for David Price. Which frankly, he's been really good lately. Keyword lately, but that is not a guy I want pitching in meaningful situations in the playoffs. It's just not. He's just not the same as what he used to be. It has disaster. It has Ryan Madsen written all over it. So, And frankly, I don't think Tommy Kahnle's going to be back whatsoever. And I don't think Buehler's going to be back either. I think they're just kind of saying that, hoping it works out. Now, if they're willing to bring him back in a relief role, then we might be talking. But that's going to be hard to manage your workload as a reliever. If you're a starter, it's tough to kind of make that transition very quickly.
Yeah, it's so hard to still forecast exactly what direction this team's going to go once you hit the playoffs. But I will say this, just if you look at where this team is at right now, I'm curious to see how they use Dustin May, because my guess is, and just based on the history of the Dodgers with their young pitchers, especially returning from injury, I don't expect them to extend him out. Some people are saying, and reports are saying, he'll come back as a starter. Part of me believes that he's going to be one of those guys that's like an opener that goes 2 to 3 innings, and that's going to be their way of kind of stretching him out. I honestly see him in the postseason as a guy that's going to be used as more of like high leverage relief, kind of like what we saw in the playoffs back in 2020, because you got to be careful with his arm, number one. You don't know exactly what that wear and tear can look like. You don't want to ruin it immediately. And knowing Dustin May's stuff, can you imagine how electric he would be out of the bullpen if you said, Dustin, you're going out there for 1 inning, maybe 2 innings, and just throw heat man and strike as many dudes out as possible with your ridiculous 2-seam? I mean, he could be filthy late in the games. And I think you listed it right there. I mean, the rotation feels almost like it's good even now to go into the postseason, even somehow without Walker Buehler. So why run the risk of starting Dustin May when you could bring him into a situation where, let's say they play the Padres, okay? And, you have Tatis, Soto, and Machado coming up. We've already seen Machado whiff a bunch of that 2-seam of Dustin May. Can you imagine if there's one reliever on the Dodgers team, if you dictate him to be a reliever, who I would trust outside of Blake Trinan to get through the gauntlet of that lineup that includes Josh Bell as well? It's probably Dustin May, right? So I feel like he's going to be a pretty core piece to what you may see in the postseason there if he can come back healthy. As far as underrated relievers, I do agree David Price is not in the picture for me. It's hard to trust Kahnle. Phil Bickford's probably the worst reliever right now in this bullpen at this time on the active roster. I can't really stand watching him. I'm curious to see what they do with Pepiot. I really do. I think that Pepiot may play a role. He's shown that he's got some command issues at times, but that changeup when it's on is pretty dang great. So I don't know. There's going to be some experimenting to do here, but I think that the bullpen is going to be okay, actually, from like innings 7 through 9. My question is, who's your middle relief guy going to be that you can actually go to and trust? Say Kershaw can't go deep in a game, like a guy that comes in the 6th inning. I don't feel confident in that range of middle relief because Martin doesn't play as a guy for me that I trust to keep a game within a 3-run range, if that makes sense.
I agree. Just real quick before I let you guys get in, on the Dustin May front, I hear what you're saying and I love the idea of it. But when a guy's coming back from Tommy John, it actually might be more of a risk to run him out there as a reliever.
It could be.
With this, if you put him out there as a piggyback starter, you know when he's going to pitch. It's a ramp up, a pitch, and a ramp down for 3 days, 4 days.
I agree with that completely, and that is the knock against relief, is that it's more of an inconsistent play, obviously. So you might be right there, and that may be what they are designing for him to do. So that's why I'm more curious to see what they do. It's interesting. It's probably the thing I'm going to follow the most here in the second half, is to see how exactly do the Dodgers manage Dustin May. What pitch count's that going to look like when he comes back? How slowly are they going to weave him back? Because they're not speeding him up. So I'd be curious. But, you saw what they did with Julio back in 2020. And you can't help but think, man, that was probably the best part of that bullpen was Julio Urias coming in and able to lock down literally the last 2 to 3 innings of a game. That was nuts.
For Julio, they had Kenta Maeda.
Yeah, I mean,
Kenta Maeda part.
We'll see what happens. I mean, they got a ton of options. No, you're good.
Okay. All right. Well, Mitch White did come up, and to me, this was probably the most predictable move that the Dodgers could possibly do at the deadline.
Okay, let's take it easy here.
Ross Stripling 2.0, and Mitch White, no doubt about it, is a major league pitcher. He deserves to be in the big leagues.
God.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No,
Let it play in the background.
with Mitch White, unfortunately, he was not good enough to be a Los Angeles Dodgers starter in the long run. They had their 5 guys already. Mitch White was rotting in AAA. Everyone knows Ryan Pepio is already better than him. That's 6. And then we got Dustin May. That's potentially 7. Maybe they should have traded Mitch White for David Robertson. That would have made a lot of sense to me. Instead, they're moving him for prospects. But they had to clear guys off the 40-man roster. This was just inevitable, just given the fact of Edwin Rios is coming back. Chris Taylor is not – he's on the 40-man, but he is coming back up in the major league level. Thus, why I think they shipped out Jake Lamb. And then Dustin May, Blake Trinan, maybe Tommy Kahnle, and then Danny Duffy, all on the 60-man.
No, not Danny Duffy.
If
We
they're
don't talk
gonna,
about Danny Duffy.
if they're going to bring them up, they have to DFA somebody. And so there's no better time than to sell these guys at the deadline and get prospects in return. Garrett Clevenger also had to pay the price. He now gets to reunite with Luke Raley in Tampa Bay. We got to have our memorable experience with Clevenger a few days ago when he gave up like 6 runs in the 9th. So sayonara, Mr. Clevenger.
So I don't know. I mean, like we said, I feel like we've talked about this, enough. I'm okay with what they did. I'm not thrilled with what they did. Like I understand the logic, but I would have liked something more. But if you go back to 2020, they didn't do anything at that deadline. They traded Ross Stripling, and that was it pretty much. So
That's true.
I mean, they won the World Series that year. Look at their big acquisitions in the past. I mean, Darvish lost, Machado lost, Trey Turner and Max Scherzer lost. So the outlier is trading Ross Stripling, and they won the World Series. So clearly they like what they got. So at this point, Friedman's given you no reason to not trust him.
And what an electric podcast that was when they traded Ross Stripling. We were in the middle of recording, and I remember where we were when that happened. And that was something else. We got a trade.
Yep.
It was thrilling.
Now, I did not play I Will Remember You by Sarah McLachlan for Ross Stripling.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was your own voice right there. That was just beautifully executed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it was actually Sarah McLachlan, not me.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah, no, it's definitely something that is going to be talked about, I think, for a while, because if the Dodgers win the World Series this year, people probably will not care or will not remember this trade deadline. But if the Dodgers lose and they lose to the Padres in this postseason, everybody's going to jump back to this trade deadline. And obviously the first thing that will be brought up is, well, they didn't get Juan Soto. Well, Juan Soto is not necessarily the piece the Dodgers needed.
Well,
it right?
depends. It depends on what happens, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like if Juan Soto doesn't have a great series and the Dodgers still lose, you know what I mean?
I was a little surprised that the Dodgers didn't go out and try and get JD Martinez. That was the piece that I thought they were actually going to push for a little bit. One more good right-handed bat that can slot in the middle of the lineup, especially with the struggles Muncy's having. You maybe Muncy's kind of reaching out, and you saw the home run the other day. That was a good sign. But I was a little surprised they didn't go for JD, strictly because there's a connection between the Dodgers and JD. The hitting coach for the Dodgers, Robert Van Scoyoc, is the reason why JD Martinez has the swing he has now. So I really thought with the availability of JD possibly being out on the market that he was going to make a stronger push to say, bring my guy back here and pair him with, Chris Taylor was obviously one of the guys that Van Scoyoc changed the swing of quite a bit. So I thought that might have been a good fit. JD obviously has punched the Dodgers in the gut in past years as well. So you know that he can hit well at Dodger Stadium. I was curious about that, but
is he worth a top 5 prospect?
Right. That's the other thing. It's like they would have had to pay the Dodgers tax, which unfortunately a top 5 prospect for the Dodgers is more like a top 3, top 2 prospect for most other teams out there. So it is a question of, was that really worth it? At the end of the day, I'm glad that they didn't part with any of their top prospect capital. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't necessarily go out and make a move, parting with some of the lower tier prospect capital, considering they have so many great pieces. Like Cody Hosey, I honestly thought was going to be on the move here. I really did. He's kind of been trending in a downward direction. I thought maybe maximize the value that you see from him and dish him, because he's close to major league ready in that sense, age-wise and everything, and there's no spot for him. So was a little surprised that they didn't try to at least maximize there. But other than that, you can't go wrong with keeping Diego Cartaya. Can't go wrong with keeping, Bobby Miller, and then obviously Gavin Lux on top of that. Not just talking prospects, but I'm glad they didn't dish Lux.
That was never going to be in the cards. Anybody, all these teams are going to ask for Lux and May like they have for the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Exactly.
But that's never in the cards.
Greatest MLB deadline ever, in my opinion. Way too many trades to go over, but some of the other big ones that jumped off the page to me: Luis Castillo going to the Seattle Mariners, Frankie Montas going to the New York Yankees. And that's going to roll us into another question from on Twitter at DubQuacker7. Was Frankie Montas worth trading? Was he worth trading for in order to acquire Rich Hill? I mean, the simple answer is duh. Rich Hill only went 30-16 as a Dodger with a 3.16 ERA over 361 innings. And he was an absolute beast in the postseason, completely owned the Red Sox, held it together against the Astros. And the common theme was Dave Roberts would always pull Rich Hill way too soon.
I agree with everything you just said. You should record that and record me saying that to you, Kevin.
Because it'll never happen again.
Well, one of us said Juan Soto was getting traded, and one of us said no way in hell was it happening.
You were right.
All right, let's talk about
You just work here.
James Outman, one of the top prospects for the Dodgers, got the call up against the Rockies in Coors Field. First at bat, hits a home run. One of the few Dodgers to ever do that. He's currently on a 7-for-8 tear batting, or 6-for-7 tear batting in the 800s. OPS well over 2,500. Already has numerous extra base hits, and I think is quickly becoming a fan favorite because James Outman, someone I've been hyping up, is the real deal. And I'm so glad they didn't have to trade him this deadline. Unfortunately, he probably won't be a big part of this postseason run because there's just too much depth. But in the meantime, while there's some injuries, let it keep rolling because you cannot get this guy out, man.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to find him at bats, even with the injuries. I know that Justin Turner's on the IL right now, but you got Joey Gallo coming in tomorrow. Miguel Vargas just got called up, so he's going to get a lot of time at third base with Justin Turner out for a little bit. It's still going to be tough for Outman to find at bats because he is left-handed. Now, if he was right-handed, that would be an easy fix. You could platoon him, but with Gallo, Bellinger, and Betts out in the outfield, there's really no spot for him at this moment. And then you also consider the fact that you could put him at DH, but then you've got the logjam of Max Muncy and Miguel Vargas. So it's going to be tough for him to get at bats. But what a story it's been so far. I love his swing. It's rare you see a very compact swing like that from a lefty. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Andre Ethier in a way, but just the short, compact. Barry Bonds had a swing like that. I'm not saying his swing is as similar, but those are the examples of short, compact, left-handed swings. And I think, Cody Bellinger could learn a thing or two from this guy in terms of adjustments, because I know that he made a lot of adjustments to his swing.
On that note, take a look at Outman's swing and then put it side by side with Daniel Murphy's back in his prime. Mm-hmm. Holy cow, the similarity is shocking. They kind of have the same launch angle off the ball I agree with everything you just said right there. He is compact through the zone. He is able to stay inside the ball, which is part of the reason why he gets great lift as well. And you can just tell that when you see plate coverage, he's got plate coverage inside, outside the zone because his swing is so compact. I was amazed because I'd read about this kid quite a bit. Obviously, the OPS speaks for itself in the minor leagues at 915. But when you have 21 bombs and 11 steals in the minors, that's always going to pop off the page for you. But to see the actual sheer athleticism and go with the fact that he really doesn't have a lot of holes in the swing. It looks like defensively, he's not going to be anything that's, going to hurt us. In fact, it seems like he's only going to be a strength there. He's got some speed on top of him. So I think that as a depth piece at the very least, it's very helpful to have him. I do agree that the at-bats are going to be an issue. And it's part of the reason why I'm not really loving the Gallo move as much, because I fear that they're going to feel like they're going to have to give Gallo at-bats when a guy like Outman may have just proved himself that he deserves more at-bats. So I worry about that just a little bit. We'll see how it plays. Usually these things kind of play themselves out. And so kind of let time go by. But just as of trying to dissect everything that happened today, and pairing what the Dodgers did with where Outman's at right now, I mean, at the end of the day, I hope he gets his chance, because what a heck of a start it's been. And he's got great flow too.
Also stoked Miguel Vargas was added to the 40-man roster. Don't know how long he'll be up, but dude has proven it down in the minors in AAA. 15 home runs, 382 on base percentage, right-handed bat. So definitely some potential to fill the void of Justin Turner. We just don't know how long he's going to be out. He could be activated for the Twins series, which is just a few days away, I believe. But I hope they give Vargas some at-bats, because he definitely has earned the opportunity. Coming from another listener at Checo for Teen on Twitter. What is your Mount Rushmore of Dodgers relievers?
Ooh. Like all time?
Ooh, all time. So that's 4 relievers.
That is how many heads are on Mount Rushmore.
I'm going to go, I'm going to throw Eric Gagne up there.
Yep.
Kenley Jansen.
Yep.
Has got to be up there.
I know my other 2.
Takashi Saito for me.
That's a good one. Trinan's up there for you, right, David?
Yeah, my other 2 are Jeff Shaw, throwback.
Jeff Shaw, wow.
He was electric growing up. And Blake Trinan. Yeah, I almost went Broxton because he was really good until he was bad in the playoffs. But
he's not on my Rushmore, nowhere near it.
Yeah, but Trinan was the missing piece in 2020. He was. I mean, they what they lacked in 2017 and 2018 and 2019 was a guy like Trinan. So he will be on the Mount Rushmore for me. But yeah, definitely Kanye, Kenley, and Gagne.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of nailed all those right there. There's one that kind of comes to mind. I mean, Eric Gagne for me would be just he was the icon growing up. But when you talk about all-time best reliever for the Dodgers, it kind of has to be Kenley Jansen. Saves leader. You talk about his ERA is one of the lowest, but you got to go with a guy that also was there too. And Jay Howell, I think, doesn't get as much talk as he deserved about that. I think he had like around 100 saves for the Dodgers. But
also Mike Marshall,
yeah,
is got to be mentioned in there. He won a Cy Young with the Dodgers in 1974. He was really
that'll
good.
do it. That'll do it for you right there. Yeah, there's a lot that we can think about. And I think modern day, we've had a lot of really elite relievers, and they're probably only going to get more elite. Takashi Saito was an interesting one to throw out there. I didn't really consider that one. And then after a longer period of time of thinking about that, I mean, he at one point was at the elite level in his game. And he was locked down in the 9th inning for that little stretch there of a 4 years. So you could throw him out there. I think the easy ones, though, have got to be Kenley and Gagne. And then it's up for debate. Jeff Shaw was actually a really good throw out right there. I like that one a lot.
Thank you.
We traded Paul Konerko for him, I believe. Wasn't that right?
Sounds right.
Oh, then that's a DQ right there.
Sounds really right.
That's a bad trade. That's a DQ.
I think we traded Paul Konerko to the Reds for Jeff Shaw.
Wasn't it the White? Oh, it was.
No, he eventually wound up on the White Sox,
Okay,
but I think we traded him to the Reds for Jeff Shaw, if I remember correctly.
And that's why you don't trade prospects for relievers right there. Well, let's talk about some Dodgers baseball. I mean, they just steamrolled the Giants in their last game. They won 9-5.
God, the Giants are bad, dude.
The Dodgers have won 6 consecutive games now against San Francisco. Kind of having their number, which is sexy in my book. 9-5 victory. Tyler Anderson had a little bit of a rough patch, gave up 5 runs, but the Dodgers offense was electric. They torched Alex Wood. They got 6 off him. Mookie Betts with the 3 RBIs, a home run. Gavin Lux drove in 2 Dodgers. Cody Bellinger, RBI triple. So they went off. And the previous game, they also just owned Logan Webb. So that was a sight to be seen. So this Dodgers team is firing on all cylinders right now. And this is probably the best that the offense has looked all season. I mean, they're coming off a 21-5 July. Freddie Freeman with an OPS over 1,000 during that month and just continues to rake, leads MLB in hits. Trey Turner right behind him. These two haven't even missed a game yet. So that's a crazy 1-2 punch. And then you got Mookie Betts leading off. He's got 24 home runs now, leads the team. So I know that it was mentioned earlier that the trio that the Padres have is better. I disagree. If we're talking about right now, give me the Dodgers 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, Tatis isn't playing. I mean, my comment was assuming Tatis is healthy.
I'm still taking the Dodgers, even if healthy.
It's close.
Freddie Freeman is better than Tatis. Mookie Betts is still better than Juan Soto right now. Maybe not long-term, but right now Mookie Betts is the better player. And then Trey Turner is balling more than Manny Machado is.
No, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
You can go wrong because Tatis is hurt.
On those Instagram, selections where it's like you get $1 here, $2 here, build your best lineup. That's basically what you're talking about right here with the Dodgers and the Padres top 3. It is a coin flip. What it comes down to, and we talked about it a little earlier, is the depth side of things. The Dodgers have the edge in terms of depth. I would say top heavy. It's really, you're talking about two sets of groups of trios, if you will, that basically at any point in time, all 3 can launch back-to-back jacks. They can score in any way, shape, or form. It's pretty scary either way. But yeah, Dodgers are clicking on all cylinders offensively, and it's good to see Will Smith hitting again because holy cow, that was a rough little stretch that he had. Yeah, that was painful to watch.
Yeah, so Dodgers got 2 more games left with the Giants. Then they got a big series with the Padres.
So it's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
That will be electrifying. Juan Soto will be wearing his Padres uniforms. Tatis is a question mark if he's able to return.
Is it at Petco?
He's not returning for that series.
Is it at Petco?
No, it's in LA.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Yep.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. And they have the Sunday night baseball matchup. So yeah, the only thing that sucks is then we don't get to hear Joe talk.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Yeah.
Joe did a great job, by the way, tonight. Holy cow. What a way to handle that situation.
Yeah, he was basically tasked with giving a eulogy.
Yeah. And he did it to perfection.
He did it really well.
And I saw he almost got Castellanos too.
Oh, almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right at the beginning, a ball went to the warning track. I was like, please don't leave the park. Yeah. Please, Bellinger, catch it.
All right. Shout out to @Josh the Flip on Twitter, who asked us if the Dodgers should make more moves, but we kind of already answered that in pretty great depth. I think that's all I have for today. So if there's anything else you guys wanted to cover before we sign off, now is the time.
I do have a short idiot of the week. It's nothing crazy, but it feels appropriate. My idiot of the week this week, is death. So what I have to say is to the Grim Reaper, fuck you. You took one of the good ones today, so you are the idiot of the week. That's all.
Of the year.
Yeah, it's challenging to be a Dodgers fan and sit here and think we lost Tommy, and now we lose arguably the greatest figure in LA sports. There's not words that can describe the emotion of this, and it's pretty bittersweet. You have a Dodgers team that wins the game in San Francisco. You love the feeling of that, but then as they're giving their high fives, their victory high fives in the backdrop, and a classy move, I will say, for the Giants, on the billboard it shows Vin Scully passes away, and obviously born in 1927 to 2022, and that just hit me a different way. It's probably the first time a Dodgers win didn't do enough for me to turn my frown upside down. I think that this one's going to sting for a long time, but let's remember the great memories of Vin, man, and let's win for Vin.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to in the days following this. They're getting to relive all of those memories and all those moments, to be able to rewatch games over and over again. We've already started to see a bunch of the clips roll in, and it's just a lot of fun to relive some of those moments. I was watching the Yasiel Puig highlights when he first came up. That was just such an electric time, and the connection between Vinskully and Yasiel Puig was really cool. He gave him the nickname, the Wild Horse. And then just a few minutes ago, Puig put out a little video just basically saying how much he loved Vinskully and how well Vinny treated him. They had a really special bond. And I felt like in a weird way, Vinskully was one of the only people that understood Yasiel Puig. Yep. And really did a beautiful job in covering his career. And I love that those years are etched in Dodgers history with Vinskully attached to it.
All right, Dusty Bakers, thank you so much for joining the Incline today. Before you go, I had to ask you, earlier this offseason, I believe you met a certain somebody, if I'm not mistaken. So why don't you walk us through what happened?
Yeah, I did. It was, wow, what a special moment. You talk about a great figure in baseball and in Dodgers lore, man. Yeah, I was named after Dusty Baker as obviously my dad was a diehard Dodgers fan. And you know, it's crazy. I'd seen Dusty Baker over the years. As a little kid, I was carried over the fence when I was 4 months old, back when he was the Giants manager. Saw him again when I was, I think, 3 years old when he was the Giants manager. They brought me down to the dugout, and I guess I beelined it straight to the pitcher's mound in hopes that I would throw out the first pitch. I was not the first pitch that day. So I wish I had video of that. But yeah, that's what I was told happened there. He's just been great to me over the years. When I was looking at schools, thank God I didn't go here. You're going to be very happy about this one, David. I was looking at Ohio State and chose not to go there. But the beauty of that trip was I went to see a Reds game. And during my flight, I got a voicemail from none other than Dusty Baker. And he said, "Hey, man, I hope this is Dusty Dusty I'm talking to. This is Dusty Baker. I left you 4 tickets behind home plate." And he's just been that guy my entire life. And so I had a chance, you know, throughout this time to tell him I had a dream to work in baseball and to hopefully one day be in the dugout with him. And while obviously I was referring to playing for him, I never thought I'd actually be in the dugout with him. And that was just a really cool moment as a reporter and kind of a full circle thing. You know, this is maybe the last year that I'll have a chance to see him. So to be able to see a Dodgers legend, even if he's wearing that Astro color that makes us all sick inside, you know, he may be the one positive that Houston actually has out there. And he's been a huge positive in my life. And man, what a special person he is. And I'm just lucky enough to be able to have one of the many stories that people have about one of the coolest guys the game's ever seen.
Very cool. Well, thank God you didn't go to Ohio State. That would have been a disaster for everybody involved.
David got out of that story.
Yeah.
Was Andy Dalton your quarterback?
Andy Dalton was the quarterback before me. We had Trayvon Boykin, who
he was fun to watch.
He was fun to watch until he decided punching a cop was the best decision in his life. He's gone kind of a poor direction since then, and so has TCU. So we're crossing the fingers that that changes for us. But yeah, man, it was cool to be able to choose that school. But who knew that the one knock against Ohio State that I have, it actually led me to seeing Dusty Baker in Cincinnati. That was pretty cool.
You still got Gary Patterson over there?
We don't. Yeah, he's with the University of Texas, the really awful guys with the horns down. So
that's my dad's alma mater. Hook 'em.
Oh God. Sick, man. That makes me sick. I can pull for Michigan, but I have nothing that I could say positive about the burnt orange.
That's fair.
All right. Thank you, Dodgers fans, for listening to this week's episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and give us a 5-star rating while you're at it. Final thoughts are pretty simple. Dodgers got the reliever, despite what the haters are saying. They got their bat, and they cleared some dead weight. So I wish the best to Zach McKinstry, because I think you're going to do electrifying out in Chicago. So I'll miss you in Dodger Blue. Garrett Clevenger, I think you're going to get more opportunities in Tampa Bay and maybe become a high leverage guy there. So I salute you as well. Mitch White, you're finally going to find a home and be in a rotation permanently. So that's going to be great for your career as well. So I think Andrew Friedman did these guys a service. And in return, the Dodgers, they're about to get rolling. This is where baseball is at its core, at its most fun. August and September, lots of games left with our rivals. So go Dodgers.